All right, good morning. Let's get started. My name is Binyomin Edinger, and I'll be covering the daf today. So it's my first time. Bear with me. All right, so we're going to start with the Mishnah on Yud Gimel Amud Beis. On the bottom, Shachat Shnei Kvasim. So the Mishnah here is talking about the kabbanos that you bring on Shavuos. There's 2 sheep that are brought as carbon shlamim, and then the Shtei Lechem, 2 bread offerings. The thing to keep in mind is that the Shtei Kvasim, the 2 sheep, the carbon shlamim, are the matir for the shtei lechem. You have to bring the shlamim first, and then once you do that, that's the matir for the shtei lechem, which have their whole baking and waving process. So, shachat shnei chavasim, if you shach the shtei chavasim on Shavuos, la'achol achas min hachalos, to eat one of the chalos, one of the shtei lechem, lamachar, chutz lizman. So you have a pigal intent during the shtei chavasim for one of the shtei lechem. Or, hiktor shnei bazichin, la'achol achad min hasadarm lamachar. Or, this is talking about the lachem hapanim, the 12 lachem hapanim on the shulchan. They are replaced each week. At the end of the week, you take one of the spoonfuls of levona from the shulchan and offer it up on the mizbeach. Once you do that, that's the matir for the shtei lechem. So if you offer one of these spoonfuls of levona on the mizbeach with a pigal intent if you offer the spoonfuls of levona with a pigal intent for one of the sidarim, for one of the sets of the shtei lechem, lamachar to eat it chutz lizman. Rabbi Yossi Omer oso hachalav oso haseder shachishe olav pigal v'chaim olav kares v'hasheni pasol v'ein bo kares. Rabbi Yossi says only that chalav of the shtei lechem, or that set of lachem hapanim that you had a pigal intent about, becomes pigal, but the other set is not as stringent. It's only pasol and there's no kares. The Chachamim omrim zev zev pigal v'chaim olav kares. The Chachamim say no, even if you only had pigal intent about one of the shtei lechem or one set of the lachem hapanim, both sets become pigal and you're chayiv kares for. So the Gemara is going to go through this machlokes in detail. So Amar Rav Huna. So Rav Huna starts off and he has a pshat in Rabbi Yossi. Omer ha Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said elsewhere, pigal b'yarach shel yamin lo nispagla yarach shel small. If during the shechita process you have a pigal intent about one portion of the animal only. I have pigal intent to eat the yarach shel yamin, the right thigh chutz lizman, but you don't. That's the only thing you're thinking about. Rabbi Yossi says only that portion of the animal becomes pigal, but the left thigh is not pigal. My taimo. What's the reason? How does he know this? Ibois ema svara, vibois ema kra. He has a logical reason and a drasha from the pasuk. Ibois ema svara. If you want to say the svara, lo adifa machshava mimaisa. A thought shouldn't be stronger than an action. Tuma ilo itmechad avre mi itmile kule. If you are mitame one portion of the animal, if you have a thigh from a carbon and it becomes tame, does the left thigh become tame after the shechita is done? After it's separated, you have one piece in one hand, one piece in the other. If the right thigh becomes tame, does the other one become tame? No. So if that tuma from one side doesn't transfer to the other, certainly a thought should not transfer from one side of the animal to the other. Vibois a makra, or you can say it's a drasha from the pasuk. V'hanefesh ha'ocheles mimenu avonatisa. This is talking about pigal, the person who eats from it, he shall carry his sin. Mimenu v'lo michavera. Only from that portion do you have the chiyuv, but not from its friend. So that's Rav Huna's pshat and Rabbi Yossi. If you have pigal intent by yarach shel yamin, the yarach shel yismol does not become pigal. So the Gemara is going to have a field day with this. So Esvei Rav Nachman le Rav Huna. Rav Nachman asks on Rav Huna, La'olam ein bo kares ad sheyifagal b'shteihen b'kazayas. We have a brisa that says, this is backed by the shtei lechem, there's no din of pigal. This brisa states that there's no kares until you have pigal intent from both of the shtei lechem b'kazayas. So if you're shechting one of the shtei kavasim on Shavuos and you have pigal intent, say, for half a kazayas from one of the shtei lechem and then half a kazayas from the other, that combines to become pigal. One of the shtei kavasim, half a gazayis from one of the shtei lechem, half a gazayis from the other, combines to become pigal. Now, so the Gemara is going to try to figure out who's the author of this brisa. B'shteyen in, be'achas mehen lo. The brisa clearly said it's if you combine. If you have half a gazayis from one of the shtei lechem and half a gazayis from the other, it becomes pigal. But if you were to do just one, it would not be pigal, according to this brisa. One of the shtei kavasim, half a gazayis from one of the shtei lechem, that's not pigal. Who would hold such a thing? Ilay Rabbanan afilu be'achas mehen Nami. The Rabbanan in the Mishnah clearly say if you have pigul and tent during one of the for one of the shtei lachem, it does both of them do become puzzle. So that can't be like the Brisa. Alapshitza Rabbi Yossi. It must be it's Rabbi Yossi who in the Brisa said that if you have pigul and tent by one of the shtei lachem, the other one does not become puzzle. So this Brisa is going according to Rabbi Yossi. But does that really make sense? It makes sense if you hold that the shtei lachem are one grouping. That's why they are mitzarif. That's how Rabbi Yossi can say if you have pigul and tent by one of the shtei lachem, half a gazayas, and the other of the shtei lachem of the half a gazayas, they become combined, and you can have pigul. But if he holds they're two separate things, like he does in the Mishnah, can they be mitzarif? In the Mishnah, he says they're two separate things because if he has pigul and tent for one of the shtei lachem, the other one doesn't become puzzle. But if you look at the Brisa, he says over there, if you have pigul and tent for half a gazais from one and half a gazais from the other, they do combine. So is it trei gufe or is it two separate items or is it one separate item? So the Gemara says, you're right, it's a good question. Hamani Rabbihi. This Brisa really isn't Rabbi Yossi. This Brisa of Olam Ein Bo Karis Aichifago B'Shtein B'Gazayas is not following the sheet of Rabbi Yossi. It's Rabbi. Titania. Hashochet es hakeves lacho chatzi zayis mechalozu. If somebody shechs one of the shtei kavasim with pigul and tent for half a gazayis from one of the shtei lechem, and then he moves on to the next carbon, v'chein chavero lacho chatzi zayis mechalozu, and then he has pigul and tent during the shchita of the second of the shtei kavasim for the next of the shtei lachem. Rebbe says, Omer ani shezeh kasher. I would say that in this situation, this is kasher. So, Taima to Amar chatzi chatzi. In that brisa, Rebbe says there's no pigul because it's half and half. You had half a pigul and tent during one shchita for one of the shtei lachem, and then half of the other half of the shtei lachem during the other shchita of the second of the shtei kavasim. Aval amar kazayis mishteim mitzarif. But we would extrapolate. Rebbe would hold if you would have intent for half during the shchita of one of the shtei kavasim, half a kazayis from one of the shtei lechem and half a kazayis from the other, he would say that it does combine to become pigul. So that aligns with what the Brisa had said. La'olam ein bo karetz ad shifago b'shtein b'kazayis. So as of right now, this Brisa is going like Rabbi Yossi, like Rabbi, and we do not have a kasha on Rabbi Yossi. But the Gemara is not satisfied with that. The Rebbe alib deman. Rebbe has to hold like somebody. So does he hold like Rabbi Yossi or the Rabbanan? If he holds like the Rabbanan, afilu be'achas mehen nami. Even if you have pigul and tent with just one of the shtei lachem, you would have both of them become pigul. If he holds like Rabbi Yossi, hadra kushchan lotuchtei, the kasha comes back on itself. If Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yossi, how does he resolve the question, the difference between the brisa that says the first brisa that we brought that the Mishnah where he says they do not combine. If you have pigul and tent by one of the shtei lechem, it does not affect the other, and versus the other brisa that Rebbe would have to hold like Rabbi Yossi and state that olam ein bo kares achifago b'shteihem, so they do combine. So we tried to get away from having a kasha between Rabbi Yossi in two different places. We said it's like Rebbe. Well, Rebbe has to hold like somebody. If he holds like Rabbi Yossi, it would still be a kasha. So what do? We change the brisa. So the la'olam ali b'derabbanan. Really, you say the brisa is like the Rabbanan. V'lo tema achi fagal b'shteihen, ela ima achi fagal b'shneihen. So you have to go back and we have to look at the brisa. It says la'olam ein bo karetz achi fagal b'shteihen b'kazayis. We originally thought that meant you're shechting the shtei lachem, you're shechting the shnei kavasim, and you have pigul and tent by both of the shtei lachem. One of the sheep, half a kazayis from one of the shtei lachem, half a kazayis from the other. The brisa says no, that's not what it meant. It meant there's no pigul until you shech both of the shtei kavasim and have a pigul and tent by even just one of the shtei lachem. It's not one of the keves, two of the shtei lachem. It's two of the keves, one of the shtei lachem. So you cannot have pigul until you do both of the shtei kavasim. This is a concept that we've talked about before. The this price is locking down, is doubling down on the fact that you have to do pigel for all of the matirin. So in order to do the shtei lachem, you have to complete the process of both of the shtei kavasim. So both of the shtei kavasim are matirin. So the Bryce is teaching you that you have to do, that there's no pigel unless you have that pigel intent across all of the matirin. So you have to do both of the shtei kavasim. And the Bryce is teaching you that Fuki Remeir says mefagla mechatzi matir, that you could have a pigel case where you only have pigel intent during half of the matir, one of the shtei kavasim. The Bryce is saying no, you have to have pigel intent for both. And then even in that scenario, if you have pigel intent throughout both for just one of the shtei lachem, it becomes pigel. So that again, we can move away from a kasha on Rabbi Yossi, and it's not Rebbe, it's now the Rabbanan, but it's a different scenario. It's talking about teaching you that both of the shtei kavasim you have to have pigel by both of the shtei kavasim in order to affect pigel on the shtei lachem. So now the Gemara says, well. So the fukim midrameir the amar mefaglim nechatzi and matir kamash malan delo, that we do not hold like the remeir. You have to have pigel intent for the entire matir. So the Gemara says ihachi my laolam. So the Brisa said laolam ein bo kares achi fagal b'shteim b'kazayis. Always there's no kares until you have pigel by both of them. That laolam is coming to teach you something extra, something that you would not have thought of. It's an extra word. It's coming to teach you something extra. So what is the la'olam? What is the extra thing that we would not have thought? Iyamre bishlama bishtehen ubishnehen v'Rabbi Yosihi uleafuki mi'oder meir u'midrabanan ka'asi hanu takamar la'olam. It would have made sense if that Bryce is going like Rabbi Yossi, and it's teaching us two things. You cannot do pigol until you shecht both of the shtei kavasim, and there's no pigel until you have pigel intent by both of the shtei lechem. Then it's coming to teach you two things. We don't hold like Rabbi Meir, who says mefaglim mechatzi and matir. You have to have all the matirin, and we don't hold like the Rabbanan. You have to have pigel intent by both of the shtei lechem. So that's the la'olam. It will make sense in that scenario. 2 and 2, both of the shtei lechem, both of the shtei kavasim. Then you have a pigel intent that's coming to teach you we don't hold like a Rabbi Meir or the Rabbanan. Hanu Takamar La'olam. Elo'i Amrit Rabbanan, but if it's like we're saying, we're following Shitas Rabbanan, Uleafukim Yud Rabbi Meir, and it's only coming to teach you one thing, that we don't hold like Rabbi Meir. You have to have pigel intent by both of the Shtei Kavasim. My La'olam, what's the extra thing? That's logical. The Brisa says that you do not have, there's no pigel until you have pigel intent by both of them. So what's the La'olam? So the Gemara is going to continue on with the questions. Now we're going to have another question on Rabbi Yossi's Shita. Va'od ha'amar of Ashi. Rav Ashi said, Tashma, come learn in this Brisa. Rebbe Omer Mishum Rabbi Yossi, keyword. Rebbe saying this in the name of Rabbi Yossi. Pigel b'davar hanasa b'chutz, pigel b'davar hanasa b'fnim, lo pigel. You can have a scenario where you have pigel about something that takes place in the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash, and then there's pigel. There's something that's for a scenario that happens inside of the Heichal. In both, if you have pigel intent outside or inside, it could be that there's no pigel. What does this mean? Ketzad. If you're standing outside in the courtyard, v'amar hareni shochet, and you're doing shchita, and you're saying, I'm going to shech this animal, al menas lahazos midamo lamachar, to do the blood application inside the heichal tomorrow, chutz lizman, or lo pigel, that is not pigel. Shemachshava b'chutz, b'davar hanasa b'fnim. You're standing outside, you're about to shech the animal outside in the courtyard, and you're thinking about a blood application inside. That is not pigel. The pigel intent has to be for a process in a place that you're standing right now. If you're outside and you're thinking about something that's going to take place inside, not pigel. Or the other way around. If you're outside and you're thinking about something that's inside, that's not going to be a pigel case. Or if you're standing inside, I'm standing inside, I'm about to do the blood application, and I'm thinking about the next step, which is the burning of the emurim, and that takes place outside. You're inside thinking about a process outside, and you have pigel intent about that process, that is not pigel. So you have pigel intent, so you're inside and you say, I'm doing the blood application, to burn the emurim on the mizbeach tomorrow, or lishpoch shirayim lemachar, or to pour the remains of the blood on the yesod tomorrow. Again, an outside process. Lo pigel shemachshava bifnim b'davar hanasa b'chutz, because This is something you're thinking about a process. You're inside thinking about a process that takes place outside, so that will not be pigel. So the Gemara picks up. Oh, so then the Gemara keeps going. Haya ombi b'chutz v'amar hareni shochet almanas lishpok shirayim lemachar or lahakte imurim lemachar. But if you are outside, you're doing shchita, and you're thinking about a process that takes place outside. You say, I'm going to do the spilling of the blood on the yesod, or I'm going to burn the imurim chutz lizman. That would be pigel. Shemachshava b'chutz b'davar hanasa b'chutz. Because you're outside, you're doing shchita outside, and you're thinking about a process that takes place outside, lishpok shirayim or hektar imurim, outside on the mizbeach, that would be pigel. So the Gemara picks up on the lishpok shirayim. If you're inside and you're thinking about lishpok shirayim to spill out the remainder of the blood on the yesod, or you're outside doing shchita and you're skipping and you're thinking about lishpok shirayim, the remainder of the spilling out the remainder of the blood on the yesod, le'afluge mai. In those cases that the Brisa talked about, what's becoming pigel? So you're thinking about, I'm going to spill the blood tomorrow chutz lizman while you're shechting the animal. If does that mean that the dam becomes pigel? You're shechting now. You're thinking about the blood spilling on the yesod, and the Gemara says that would become pigel if you're standing outside. If you're inside, it's not. What would become pigel? The blood itself. Dam mimafagel. Can blood itself become pigel? Tonight we learned in the Mishnah. Elu devarim she'ein chayavin aleihen mishum pigel. These are the things that you're not chayev for pigel. If you have pigel intent about hakometz, the actual kamitza from the karban mincha, or lavona, or about the lavona, the frankincense on the karban mincha, or minchas kohen v'akatoris, or if you have pigel about the katoris, the spice offering, or minchas kohenim, or a special karban mincha that a kohen would bring, or minchas nesachim, or a mincha that gets brought along with wine karbanos, or minchas kohen mashiach, or the mincha that the Kohen Gadol brings every day, vehadam, and blood. So we have a clear Mishnah that states that dam cannot become pigel. So what was it? Ela pshita la'afluge basar. It must be that the basar becomes pigel. You're shechting now. You're thinking about pigel intent of spilling the blood chutz lizman on the mizbeach. This was a brisa. The meat becomes pigel. You're not thinking about the meat. You're thinking about spilling out the blood. The blood can't become pigel, so the meat, the basar of the animal becomes pigel. Now, hashta now. Uma hasam delo chashiv be basar gufei. In that scenario, you're not thinking about the meat at all. You're thinking about the blood. You're shechting, thinking about spilling the blood out at the wrong time. The basar itself becomes Amar Rabbi Yossi mefagel. The basar itself becomes pigel. This whole brisa was according to the sheets of Rabbi Yossi. Hacha techashiv be bezevach gufei lo kol shekain. Back in the beginning of the Gemara, where Rabbi Yossi had this shita about Yerech Shel Yamin does not make Yerech Shel Smol pigel. Well, in that scenario, you're thinking about the basar. You're thinking about a portion of it. Certainly, in that case, the entire animal should become pigel. If in a scenario where you're not thinking about the meat at all, you're thinking about the blood, still we say that the meat becomes pigel. Certainly, in a scenario where you are thinking about the meat, yes, it's a portion of it. Shouldn't the whole thing also become pigel? So that's a kasha from this brisa that quotes Rabbi Yossi on the brisa before that Rabbi Yossi had stated about Yerech Shel Yamin, Yerech Shel Smol does not become pigel. We're going to ask another similar type of question now on Rabbi Yossi from another brisa. So Hacha the chashav be bezevach gufei lo kol shekain the pigel b'yarach yamin pigel b'yarach smol. V'od Amar Ravuna also said Tashma hakomitzes a mincha lechol shiareha o lahakter kumtza lemachar. This is the Mishnah from the beginning of our parak. If you're doing kemitza on a karban mincha and you have in mind to eat shiareha, to eat the remainder of the karban mincha chutz lizman, or lahakter kumtza lemachar, or to burn the kometz that you're taking chutz lizman tomorrow, Moldi Rabbi Yossi bezu shepigol v'chayev and alav kares. That's a standard case of pigel, and Rabbi Yossi agrees in that scenario that is pigel and your chayev kares. Now, same sort of question. Lahakter kumtza le'efluge mai. You're taking the kemitza and you're thinking that you're going to burn the kemitza chutz lizman. What becomes pigel in that scenario? Is it that the kometz itself becomes pigel? Kometz mi befagel. Can the kometz itself become pigel? We just saw this. V'hatzanan. We learned in that Mishnah. Elu devarim she'ein chayavin Allah aleihan mishum pigel. These are the things that you're not chayav pigel for. HaKometz v'chuli. The kometz cannot become pigel. Ella pshita le'efluge shirayim. It must be when you're doing kamitza and you have pigel intent to burn the kamitza chutz lizman. The kamitza doesn't become pigel. The remainder of the carbon mincha becomes pigel. So now here we go again. Same question. Hashta. Uma hasam delo chashav behu b'shirayim gufei. You're not thinking about the shirayim at all. There's nothing wrong there. You're thinking about the kamitza. You're doing the kamitza and you're thinking, I'm going to burn the kamitza chutz lizman. Still, miflagi, the entire offering becomes puzzle. Their shirayim become puzzle. Yudalat on base. Hacha dechashav behu b'zvicha. Here in this scenario, where you are thinking about the entire animal, you're thinking hacha dechashav behu b'zvicha gufei lo kol shekain. You're thinking about yarach shel yamin, but still you're thinking about the actual animal. Rabbi Yossi in that scenario should say that the entire animal becomes pigel. If he says by the mincha, where you're not thinking about the offering, you're thinking about the kamitza, it becomes puzzle. Certainly in a scenario where you are thinking, you're having a pigel intent about the actual offering, it should become pigel. So we have a number of questions on Rabbi Yossi. So we're going to switch gears. Ella Rabbi Yochanan, Hano Tamid Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, we have a new reasoning for Rabbi Yossi. He has a pretty good defense. Hakasav asan guf echad, v'hakasav asan shnei gufin. He's following the Torah. The Torah in certain scenarios groups the shtei lechem together, and certain scenarios considers them separate. Guf echad dema'akve ahadadi. They're considered one body, one unit, because they're ma'akev each other. You're not used to the mitzvah of shtei lechem until you offer both of them. You have to do the waving together as one unit, both of them as one unit. So in certain situations, the Torah groups them together. So the guf echad dema'akvi hadadi shnei gufin damarachmana halachudei avida v'halachudei avida. But the preparation has to be done separately. The Torah says you have to knead and prepare one, and then knead and prepare the other. So in certain situations, the Torah groups them. In certain situations, the Torah separates them. So Rabbi Yossi says, I follow that logic. In certain situations, they're grouped. That's why you can have pigel intent for half a gazayas from one and half a gazayas from the other, and it combines to become pigel. But conversely, he holds they're separate. If you have pigel intent about just one in the Mishnah, the other one does not become pigel. So he's just following the way that the pasuk lines it up. So right. Arvino Miss Arvin de Hakasav Asun Guf Echad. He mixes them together in certain situations, just like the pasuk makes them one guf. That's why if you have half a gazayas intent for half a gazayas from one combined with half a gazayas from the other of the shtei lechem, it becomes pigel. Palagino mifleg da kasav aso shnei gufin. But in certain situations, he separates it. If you have pigel intent by one, the other one does not become puzzle, because in other scenarios, the pasuk considers them two separate items. Okay, so now we're going to move on a little bit, and we're going to ask about another set of similar scenarios. Would the machlokus of Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan still apply? But Rabbi Yochanan asks, Pigel belachme toda mahu, b'minchas mafe mahu. If a person would have pigel intent by the lachme toda, which are carbon mincha, a thanks offering. There's a whole bunch of rules, but there's 40 loaves that get brought with a carbon toda. 10 that are challah, 10 that are matzah, 10 that are like wafers, 10 that are flour. So there's different categories of the mincha for the carbon toda. So if you have pigel intent by one set, say by the challah, do the other sets also become pigel? Does Rabbi Yossi in that scenario say no, and the Rabbanan say yes? Does the same machlokas apply? Or b'minchas ma'afa, another special type of mincha, like a baked mincha, where there's one set that are challah and one set that are wafers. So if you have pigel intent by one category, does the same machlokas apply? Does Rabbi Yossi say the other category is still fine, and the Rabbanan say no, the other category is affected as well? So Tana lei Rav Tachlifa mimarava, Rav Tachlifa from the west says v'chein atza omer belachmei toda, v'chein atza omer b'minchas ma'afa. Yes. You would say that the machlokas still applies by the lachmei toda, and it also applies by the minchas ma'afa. The Rabbi Yossi would say if you have pigel intent by one category, the other categories are still okay, and the Rabbanan would say no, all of them become pigel. All right. So the Gemara now moves on from this. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa, bishas shchita. If while you're shechting an animal, chishev la'achol chatzi zayis, you have intent to eat half a kazayas of pigel. So you're shechting the animal, standard case, but you're only having pigel intent by half a kazayas, and then you move on. Uvishas zrika, chishev la'achol chatzi zayis. You move on to the next step. One of the next steps is zrika, and you have pigel intent for half a kazayas there. Pigel, those combine to be pigel. You're doing shchita, half a kazayas, and then a couple minutes later you're doing zrika. You have pigel intent there. Those combine. Mipnei shchita uzrika mitzdarfin. This brisa says the shchita and zrika are mitzdarfin. They combine. So the Gemara extrapolates on that. Ika da amri, there are certain people that say shchita uzrika ditirvayu matirin. In Kabbalah v'halacha lo. It's only in those two steps of the process where you can have a combination. So that you know, so during the shchita, there's four processes: the shchita, Kabbalah, halacha, zrika, shechting the animal, accepting the blood, walking to the mizbeach, walking to wherever the blood application is, and doing the blood application. So there's some people that say only the Kabbalah and zrika combine because those are the matirin. You have to do shchita in order to do zrika, and then you can't do hektar imurim until you do zrika. So those are the two key parts of the process. So those two combine. If you have a kazayas from one and half a kazayas from the other, it does combine to become pigel. But Kabbalah v'holacha, the steps in the middle, which technically you could skip. You could shecht right next to the mizbeach, and then you don't have to do Kabbalah and holacha. And those two, which are not matirin, they would not combine. So if you would have half a kazayas pigel intent during Kabbalah, and then half a kazayas pigel intent during holacha, that would not combine to become pigel. It's only shchita and zrika. So that's one way of thinking. Or vika to amri hanach de mecharkin the kol shekain hani de mekarvin. Other people say, well, it's sort of a kal v'chomer. Shchita and zrika are steps 1 and 4. They're separate from each other. Still, even though they're distanced from each other, they do combine to form pigel. Steps 2 and 3, which are right next to each other, Kabbalah and halacha, should also combine to have pigel. So one way of thinking is that only Kabbalah, only shchita and zrika, because they're the matirin, but not Kabbalah and halacha. And then the other way of thinking is that no, all of them would combine because 1 and 4 are the matirin, and then 2 and 3 are right next to each other. So the Gemara says, Aini, is this so? Would this really do they really combine? Vaha Tani Levi learned Arba Avodos Ein Mitzdarfis Lepigel. The 4 Avodos do not combine to get you into a pigel, to if you have half or less than a shear of pigel intent during some of them, they don't combine to become pigel. Shrita, uzrika, kabbalah, v'holacha. He clearly states that these 4 processes do not combine to affect pigel. So Amar Rava. So what do we do? Lokasha ha Rebbe v'Rabbanan. It's 2 separate people. Titania, like we see in the Brisa. Hashochid es hakeves lacho chatzi zayis mechal zu, v'chein chaver lacho chatzi zayis mechal zu. Rebbe Omer anish is that kasher. This Brisa we saw before. If you're back to the karbanos on Shavuos, if you shecht one of the shtei kivasim with intent for half a kazayas pigel on one of the shtei lechem, and then you move on to the next one, the next of the shtei kivasim, and you have pigel intent for the second of the shtei lechem, Rebbe would say in that case they do not combine for pigel and it's kosher. So that Rebbe holds like Levi. Rebbe holds if you have pigel intent by half during one part of the process and half during another part of the process, it does not combine. That follows like the shita of Levi and the shita of Rebbe, and then the brisa we saw before that says that during shchita and zrika they do combine. That's the shita of the Rabbanim. So the Gemara is going to go back and forth on this a little bit. Amrle Abaye. Abaye said back to Rava. Emer teshamis leila Rebbe chatzi matir v'chatzi achila. Where did Rebbe say his rule? He said his rule by a chatzi matir case and a chatzi achila case. Kulo matir v'chatzi achila mishamis le. Would he say that there is no pigol when you have a kulo matir and chatzi achila case? So Rebbe said by the case of the shtei kavasim, you're shechting one of the shtei kavasim and have pigol intent for one of the shtei lechem, and then you move on and you do the next of the shtei kavasim, and you have pigul intent for the other one of the shtei lechem. That's half of the matir. You're doing one of the shtei kavasim, and also it's chatzi achila. You're also having half intent by the shtei lechem, half by the matir, one of the shtei kavasim, half of the achila, half the gazayas of the shtei lechem. In that scenario, Rebbe says you don't combine, right? But would he say in a scenario where you're doing kulo matir and chatzi achila that they wouldn't combine? If by, say, the brisa before, you're shechting an entire animal, you're doing the entire shechita process, and you have pigul intent for chatzi achila for pigul, and then you do an entire zrika process, and you have pigul intent by another chatzi pigul. Wouldn't he say in that scenario you do combine? There's a difference. If Rebbe only said there's no pigul combo if you do pigul intent by chatzi matir and chatzi achila, half of the matir, only one of the shtei kavasim of the shtei kavasim, and then one of the two of the shtei lechem. In that case, pigul intent doesn't combine. But wouldn't he say in a scenario where you're doing the kulo matir, you're doing the entire shlita, you're doing the entire zrika, even if you only have half intent for half a kazayas from one and half a kazayas from the other, you would combo there. There's more of a reason to make a combination there because you're doing the kulo matir. He only said his ruling where there's no pigul if you have pigul intent during chatzi matir. So it's going to get a little complicated. So we're going to go back and forth with this. It's already complicated, right? So Amalei Rava bar Rav Chanan le Abaye. So Rava bar Rav Chanan says back to Abaye. Now v'i islay the Rebbe kulo matir v'chatzi achila. If according to what you're saying that Rebbe would say kulo matir and chatzi achila is pigul. So Rebbe says chatzi matir, chatzi achila is not pigul, but the kasha was, well, shouldn't he say in kulo matir chatzi achila it would be pigul? So according to that, if you would say that Rebbe holds, if you're doing an entire matir and you have pigul intent for half of the achila, in that scenario you would say pigul. Rebbe would hold pigul. Ligzar chatzi matir v'chatzi achila atu kulo matir v'chatzi achila. If he would hold that, he would have to make a gezerah back to his original case where he said there is no pigul and say that there actually is pigul by chatzi matir and chatzi achila. Right now, Rebbe Shita is chatzi matir, chatzi achila, no pigul, kulo matir, chatzi achila, yes pigul. If you hold that, if you hold Rebbe would say kulo achila, chatzi matir, there is pigul, you would have to change Rebbe's original Shita. He should have to make a gezerah by chatzi matir, chatzi achila. In that scenario, there is pigul also. Why would he be forced to make a gezerah? Because everybody else would do that. Because look, it's Daha Rebbe Yossi Gazer, Rabbanan Gazer. Rebbe Yossi also make gezeros in similar situation, and Rabbanan also make gezeros in that situation. Rebbe Yossi Gazer Ditzanan. Rebbe Yossi made a gezerah like we learned in a Mishnah. Lahaktir levonasa lamachar. If you have pigul intent by a regular karban mincha, which has a kometz and levona to be offered up, and you have pigul intent by just the levona, to do that chutz lizman. Rabbi Yossi Omer pasal ve'ein bo kares. Rabbi Yossi says that's pasal and there's no kares. V'chachamim omrim pigul v'chayiv and alav kares. Normally you need both of the matirin. That's Rabbi Yossi. You have to do both the kometz and the levona. So if you have just the levona, that's not pigul. Rabbi Yossi still says it's pasal. It's not kosher. He takes a step. He makes a gezerah and says, yes, it's not really pigul, but he makes a gezerah. If you only have pigul intent by just the levona, you don't have pigul intent by the kemitza, still Rabbi Yossi goes out of his way and says that is a pasal karban. And the Rabbanan also make a gezerah in these scenarios. Rabbanan nami gazri. The Rabbanan also make a gezerah. Ditzanan, because we learned in a Mishnah. Pigul bekometz v'lo belevona, belevona v'lo bekometz. If you have pigul intent by just the kemitza or not the levona, or just the levona and not the kemitza, Rabbi Meir Omer pigul v'chayiv and love kares. The Rabbanan say, Rabbi Meir says that is enough for pigul and your chayiv kares. The Chachamim Omrim ein bo kares ad sheyifaga b'chol matir. The Chachamim say, like we've seen before, there's no kares until you have pigul for the entire matir. So same story. You have pigul intent by just the kometz, or just the levona, the Chachamim say it's not pigel, but there's it's still puzzle. The Chachamim omrim ein bo kares. There's no kares, but it's still puzzle. They make a gezerah. It's not completely fine. They make a gezerah. They puzzle the carbon. So here we go. So back to the shita of Rebbe. Rebbe says chatzi matir, chatzi achila does not combine to become pigel. So we extrapolate from that. He would say kulo matir, chatzi achila. There would be pigel. The Gemara asks on that. Well, he would have to make a gezerah then. If he says kulo matir, the entire shchita process, the entire zrika, when you have pigel intent for half a achila during both, that would be pigel. He would also then have to say by chatzi matir, say he would have to say by chatzi matir, which was the shtei kavasim. You have pigel intent during one of the shtei kavasim, and then pigel intent during one of the other shtei kavasim for half a kazayas from one of the shtei chalos and then half a kazayas from one of the others. In that scenario, he says there's no pigel, but he would have to make a gezerah that there actually is, because he holds by kulo matir and chatzi achila there is pigel. Why is he forced to? Because the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yossi also make gezeros in those scenarios to protect you from making a mistake. But you can see that the answer coming. The Gemara is going to say, in those scenarios, the Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan, they had reasons for making gezeros. There's nothing forcing Rebbe to make a gezerah to go back to change his original shita. What were the reasons that forced the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yossi to make their gezeros? Amar le hachi hashta. Are you really bringing this question? Bishlama hasam gazer Rabbi Yossi. There's reasons why in those scenarios that we quoted, Rabbi Yossi makes a gezerah. Bishlama hasam gazer Rabbi Yossi. Kometz de Lavona, atu kometz de mincha. What was Rabbi Yossi's gezerah? When you have pigel intent by just the Lavona, it's puzzle. It's not pigel, but he still makes gezerah that it's puzzle. Why? Because he's protecting you against a case of kometz de mincha. He would say if you were having pigel intent during the kemitza, it would be pigel. So even though we're talking about the Lavona, it's similar enough to a case to the kometz de mincha. They're both offerings from a carbon mincha, and in those situations, in the kometz de mincha scenario, that is pigel. So even though you're only having pigel intent by the Lavona, there's a reason there to make a gezerah because it's close enough to the kometz de mincha scenario. So there, Rabbi Yossi goes back and says, even by kometz de Lavona, it becomes puzzle because it's close enough to kometz de mincha. And then the Rabbanan also, the Rabbanan have a reason for making their gezerah. Rabbanan Gazri, the Rabbanan make a gezerah, kometz atu kometz de minchas chote. What was the Rabbanan's gezerah? Pigel b'kometz v'lo b'lavona, or b'lavona below the kometz. If you have pigel intent by just the kometz and not the lavona, there it's puzzle. It's not pigel because you need to have pigel intent by all of the matirin, by both the kometz and the lavona. But if you have pigel intent by just the kometz, the Rabbanan say it's puzzle. Why? Atu kometz de minchas chote. For a specific case of a minchas chote, which is a special carbon mincha, that there is no lavona. It's a carbon mincha that you have just the kometz, and that's the only thing that gets burnt on the mizbeach. The lavona itself does not. So in a scenario where you have a carbon mincha, that you have both a kemitza and a lavona that gets burnt, and you have pigel intent by just the lavona, the Rabbanan say that's not pigel, but it's still puzzle because it's close enough to a case of a carbon minchas chote, which has only a kometz. So even in that scenario, there's only one thing. So if you have pigel intent about that kometz still of the minchas chote, that becomes pigel. Normally, you need to have pigel by two things by a carbon mincha, according to the Rabbanan, both the kometz and the lavona. If you have pigel intent by one, it's not pigel. But the Rabbanan will make a gezerah and say it's still puzzle because it's close enough to a mincha that only has one offering. It only has the kometz to the lavona. So that's the reason why the Rabbanan will make a gezerah by a regular carbon mincha. Carbon mincha, you have pigel intent by the kemitza, not by the lavona. It's still puzzle because it's close enough to a scenario of a minchas chote that only has a kemitza, no lavona. And in that scenario, if you have pigel intent by just one thing, the only thing, it becomes pigel. So we make a gezerah by a regular carbon mincha also. So that covers the kemitza gezerah. Ulavona atu lavona haba bebazikin. Same thing by a regular carbon mincha. If you have back to the Rabbanan's gezerah, pigel b'kometz v'lo b'lavona, or b'lavona below b'kometz. If you have pigel intent by just the lavona now and not the kemitza, the Rabbanan say the same thing. It's not pigel, but it's puzzle. Why? Because it's close enough to a similar carbon, the lachem apanim. The lachem apanim, the way their offering is, you bring just the lavona up on the mizbeach. right? The spoonfuls on top of the shulchan. So in that scenario, there's nothing else. There's just the levona. So if you have pigel intent for just the levona offering on the shtei lachem, that is pigel. So by a regular case of a mincha where there's levona, yes, there's also a kamitza. The Rabbanan will make a gezerah in that scenario and say it's puzzle because it's close enough to the lachem hapanim where there's only a levona offering, and in that scenario, if you have pigel intent there, it becomes pigel. So the Rabbanan make a gezerah and say by even a regular carbon mincha, if you have pigel intent by just the levona, it's still puzzle. That's the gezerah. So and kavasim nami keves atu keves chavero bezach atu bezach chavero. And there's other scenarios where the Rabbanan make gezeros. This is from a Mishnah later on. If you take a look at the Rashi keves, which is on the wide lines on the bottom, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down in the middle, keves. Dami Rabbanan b'masnisin shachad echad min hakavasim lechol beis chalos lamachar. Oh, hiktir echad min habazichin leechol shnei sidarim lamachar. To Ami Rabbanan ein bo kares ha pasal. This is similar to the cases that we've talked about. It's talking about again the shtei kavasim on Shavuos. If you shecht one of the shtei kavasim to eat both of the shtei lachem chutz lizman tomorrow, or you have a pigel intent during one of the bazichin, one of the spoonfuls of frankincense on the lachem apanim for both of the sidarim. The cases we were talking about before was 1 and 1. You do pigel intent during shchita of one of the shtei kavasim for one of the shtei lachem, and then you have pigel intent during the next one, next of the shtei kavasim for the other of the shtei lachem. This Mishnah is talking about 1 to 2. I'm sorry, it's talking about 1 to 2. You have pigel intent by one of the kavasim for both of the shtei lachem, or one of the bazichin for both sets of the lachem apanim. In that scenario, the Rabbanan will say it's pasal, but not pigel. Ein bo kares, but they make a gezerah for that it's pasal. Why? Same thing, because it's close enough to the scenario where you do in fact have pigel by both of the shtei kavasim and both of the bazichin. If you're offering one of the shtei kavasim and have pigel intent by both of the shtei lachem, the Rabbanan will say it's pasal to protect you from a scenario where you have pigel intent by both of the shtei lachem by both of the shtei kavasim for both of the shtei lachem, or both of the bazichin for both sets of the lachem apanim. It's close enough, so the Rabbanan make a gezerah. We want to protect you from that case. They say kavasim nami keves atu keves chavero. If you have pigel intent by one, it's possible to protect you a case where you would have pigel intent by both of the shtei kavasim, or bezach atu bezach chavero. Same thing. If you have pigel intent by one of the bazichin of the lachem apanim, it's possible to protect you from a scenario where you have pigel intent by both of the bazichin. So in all of these cases, back to the point, they have reasons for making their gezeros. The Rabbanan have reasons for making their gezeros, and Rabbi Yossi. Elohacha, back to the case of Rebbe. Mi ika chatzi matir v'chatzi achila ba'al mutalekim v'ligzar. Is there a scenario that we have to protect against for Rebbe? Rebbe said chatzi matir, chatzi achila. It does not combine to become pigel. You're shechting one of the kavasim and have pigel intent for half the gazais from one of the shtei lachem, and then again another kavas half the gazais for the other shtei lachem. That's chatzi matir, chatzi achila. There's no pigel. He doesn't have to make himself more stringent. There's nothing else to protect against. The Rabbanan and the Rabbi Yossi had all these other gezeros because there was reasons. They were similar enough to other scenarios where we would make a gezerah to pasel whatever you were doing. But Rebbe would not be forced to change his gezerah to make that chatzi matir, chatzi achila pasel. And this makes sense. Why? Hachi nami mistabra. Detamid Rabbanan mishum hachi. The reason of the Rabbanan is because of this. Is because of a gezerah. Diktani Seifa, because we learned in the Seifa of this Mishnah that we'll see on Daf Tezayin that we saw in the Rashi. Modin Chacham and the Rebbe Meir. The Chachamim agreed to the Rebbe Meir. B'minchas chote b'minchas kanos. By a minchas chote and a minchas kanos. These are both special carbon minchas that have one matir, the komets. There's no levona on these. And pigel bekomets, shepigel. If you have pigel intent by just the kemitza, it becomes pigel. The chayav and love kares, and your chayav kares. Sheha komets hu matir, because the komets is the matir. So the Gemara asks, how lamali the misni klal pshita. Why do the Rabbanan have to say shakometz hu matir? By these karbanos, minchas chote and minchas kanos, there's only kamitza. There's no levona. It's in the Torah. You don't need something to come and tell you that the kometz hu matir. That's the only thing there is. The only matir is the kamitza. Everybody knows that. So why did they go out of their way to say in these scenarios, by the minchas chote and the minchas kanos, where there's only kamitza, it becomes pigel because hakometz hu matir. Mi ita matir achrina. Is there another matir? Elalav hakamash malan. It's coming to teach you the taima de kometz mishum de ika kometz de minchas chote de damile. The reason why the Rabbanan made their gezeros in other scenarios where you have a regular karban mincha and you have pigel intent by just the levona or just the kometz, it's to make a gezerah to a case of the minchas chote and the minchas chavitim where there's only the kamitza that can become pigel. They're over there by that scenario, by the minchas chote and the minchas kenos, the Rabbanan go out of their way to say, in that scenario, it's pigel because it's the only matir. So they say that there to teach you by a regular mincha, we're going to be close enough to that, and we make a gezerah to say that in those, by a regular mincha, you have pigel intent by just the levona or just the kometz, it's not pigel, because you have to have pigel by both of the matirin, but it's close enough to the minchas chote and the minchas kenos, where there's only a kamitza, there's only one matir, that even in these scenarios we say it's puzzle but not pigel. So we can go back now and say that Rebbe, we can align the brisos before, and we can say that Rebbe holds, like Levi, that there's no combinations between the four avodos that we talked about, Shchita, Zrika, Kabbalah, and Holacha, and he's not forced to make a change to his Shita because of a gezerah of another case.